There are many reasons why a player can be disliked. Sometimes the animosity is born from the player's underwhelming performance. Other times, it is the player's misdeeds off the field. But in Rocker's case, it was a slew of different controversies. This player was so controversial that even his team's fans wanted him out. Surprisingly, the coaches and other players were fed up with his antics as well. But could it have been that bad? What were the controversies about, and how did they trigger this much hate for the player? To start with, this controversial player didn't hold back on bringing trouble to his team. His former teammate Kevin Millwood once recounted an incident from their time together in Danville, Virginia. According to him, Rocker's frustration was on full display one day as he began biting the baseball. He let the catcher's throws hit him in the chest and even hurled one over the outfield fence, all in a single day. Teammates would also observe his reactions when his fastball didn't have the desired velocity or his curveball lacked bite. It was like a test of his temperament. Well, John Rocker's journey through the minor leagues in 1997 took an unexpected turn when he was designated as a relief pitcher for Durham. Rocker, who had always considered himself a starter, had never pitched in a league higher than Class A, and this new role did not sit well with him. He felt sidelined, undervalued, and perpetually frustrated. His response to the change was palpable, and he remarked, "I felt like I was on the back burner. I didn't feel like I was a very important part of the staff. I was down and out and pitching mad all the time." However, despite his evident displeasure, Rocker was a pitcher with immense potential and a future that needed nurturing. In the midst of all this turmoil, Rocker contemplated throwing in the towel and returning to Macon, but it was the Durham pitching coach Jerry Nyman that played a pivotal role in dissuading him from that hasty decision. Nyman would encourage Rocker to make the most of his new role in the bullpen and to see it as an opportunity for growth. Thankfully, the player's journey continued and he adapted to the change. Also, the move to the bullpen turned out to be a defining moment for Rocker. He thrived in this new role, eventually joining the Atlanta Braves in 1998, where he made a remarkable impact, posting a stellar 2.13 ERA and allowing just 22 hits in 38 innings as a setup man. Obviously, the rising star's career was on an upward trajectory. Truly, not many people had given much thought to Rocker until December of 1999. He was a 24-year-old southpaw coming off a season with the Braves, having posted a solid 2.39 ERA and a 4-5 record. At that time, he was only still recognized for his pitching skills, not for his off-field persona. However, it was in a fateful Sports Illustrated interview with Jeff Pearlman that everything changed. Titled "At Full Blast," the interview, which was conducted while this rising star was on his way to speak to a group of kids, took an unexpected turn. Rocker unleashed a tirade against the team he despised the most, the New York Mets, but he didn't stop at the team. He targeted their fans and the city itself. His infamous quote read, "The biggest thing I don't like about New York are the foreigners. I'm not a very big fan of foreigners." That quote, even in the pre-social media era, went viral, and Rocker suddenly found himself labeled as baseball's most reviled figure. The interview not only tarnished his image, but also irreversibly altered the perception of fans and his place in the sport. In the aftermath, Rocker attempted to defend himself, insisting that he wasn't racist or prejudiced. Still, the damage had already been done, and his character was now inseparable from his comments. Plus, notorious for his controversial remarks in the Sports Illustrated interview, Rocker was not just embroiled in accusations of racism, homophobia, and sexism, but it's often overlooked that he also had some choice words for the New York Mets and their fans. In that infamous interview, he stated, "Nowhere else in the country do people spit at you, throw bottles at you, throw quarters at you, throw batteries at you and say, 'Hey, I did your mother last night, she's a whore.' I talked about what degenerates they were, and they proved me right." The missiles from his mouth were just too much, and it touched almost everyone. So when Rocker faced his first game at Shea Stadium on June 29, 2000, it was clear that his words had left a lasting impact. The security presence was overwhelming, with over 700 police officers in attendance, a stark contrast to the usual 60 policemen for other regular games. Beer purchases were restricted, and a protective cover was placed over the Atlanta Braves bullpen. Moreover, in an attempt to make amends, Rocker had recorded a videotaped apology to the Mets, but when it was played before the game, the fans responded with boos. The tension in the stadium was just too high, you could cut it with a knife. As the 8th inning rolled around, Rocker took the mound after Brave star Jason Marquis. Of course, the fans didn't hold back. showering him with loud boos, hurling objects onto the field, and even starting a chant that was heavily laced with profanity. After the game, Rocker made a swift exit from Shea Stadium, departing half an hour ahead of the rest of the team in a black van flanked by 3 security vehicles. Clearly, even he knew what was at stake, and he understood it was time to leave. It was a Friday evening on June 22, 2001, when the Cleveland Indians orchestrated a deal with the Atlanta Braves that would go down as one of the most bewildering, head-scratching trades in the franchise's storied history. The trade involved right-handed relievers Steve Carsey and Steve Reed, who were shipped off to the Braves in exchange for lefty reliever John Rocker. And if the name John Rocker doesn't ring a bell at that time, it's either because you weren't closely following baseball or hadn't yet arrived on the scene in 2001. This is because Rocker, a towering 6'4" and 225-pound pitcher, was notorious for much more than his pitching prowess. He was already a symbol of walking controversy at that point. When the Indians acquired him, the prevailing belief was that he would eventually assume the role of the team's closer, supplanting Bob Wickman. But at the time of the trade, Wickman had already notched 14 saves. 2001 also turned out to be one of Bob Wickman's best seasons, boasting a pristine 2.39 ERA and saving 32 games for the Indians. And now that we think of it, why did the Indians decide to bring Rocker to Cleveland, given his history and knowing fully well that it could divide the clubhouse and elicit a wide range of reactions? Well, we might not know that, but we can categorically say that the outcome of the trade was nothing short of disastrous for the Indians. Despite an initial show of promise, Rocker's career in Cleveland took a nosedive. He had a few decent outings, including 1 against the Yankees and 3 against the Royals. However, when the chance came for him to secure a save on July 5th at Jacobs Field, it all unraveled. With the game hanging by a thread at 4-3 in favor of the Indians, Rocker was given the opportunity to shine. His entrance was accompanied with the blaring anthem of "Rock You Like a Hurricane" by the Scorpions, creating an aura of impending dominance. Rocker faced the Boston Red Sox, and the next moment was a defining one. He managed to secure the first out, but then allowed a single, double, and a walk loading the bases. A strikeout briefly reignited a glimmer of hope, but it was short-lived. Jose Offerman stepped up and lined a pitch right up the middle, driving in 2 runs and flipping the score to 5-4 in favor of the Red Sox. In the end, the Indians couldn't recover, and Rocker was left with a blown save and a loss. It seemed that this singular outing had shattered his confidence, and the role of closer swiftly reverted to Bob Wickman. Moving on, the Indians seemed to acknowledge their error in judgment, and Rocker became a punching bag on the mound for the remainder of the season, posting a dismal 3-7 record with a 5.45 ERA. However, in the midst of all those controversies, it seemed like this troubled player didn't really care. Sadly, the animosity towards him continued till he retired, and even today, many baseball fans do not have any love to spare for this player whose career was marred by controversies.